Good evening and welcome to Save Our Water's first Zoom update. Middlebrook Water, the story continues. Is it over? Not by a long shot. Understanding that we are joining this meeting from different places, we would like to begin by remembering that we are all on traditional First Nations land. We acknowledge and express gratitude to the original stewards in this area, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Attawandaron or neutral peoples. Middlebrook is on the Haldimand Tract, which is treaty land granted to the Six Nations. We endeavor to honor this history by strengthening our relationship with land and water and continuing responsible stewardship. We would like to thank Wellington Water Watchers for helping us set up this event, and in particular to thank Mike Balkwell, the campaign manager for Wellington Water Watchers, for helping to chair this webinar and keep us on track. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Deanna. It's a pleasure to be with everybody tonight. As Deanna mentioned, I'm Mike Balkwell. I work with the Wellington Water Watchers as their campaign director. And together, you and we all together have been very engaged with each other on this issue for a number of years. It's been a long time since we've been able to meet in person, and now we're meeting online, and a lot has happened. So we're providing an update tonight on the situation with the Middlebrook well. As you may know, on April 1st was the end of the moratorium on permits to take water for bottling in Ontario. That moratorium was implemented in the fall of 2016 and just ended April the 1st. In that period of time, there was a lot of policy review, there was legislative review, and so there are new things that are happening. In addition, Nestle Waters Canada, as part of Nestle Waters North America, has been purchased by a private equity company, One Rock Capital and Metropolis, and they've renamed their brands, they've renamed the business Blue Triton. So that's a new development. There is new legislation now that provides municipalities like Centre Wellington with the authority to approve or not approve a permit to take water, a new permit to take water for bottling within a municipality. So there's lots that's happened, lots for us to update you on. You know that you're lucky to have good leadership in your community, and we're going to hear from many of those leaders tonight. In terms of the agenda, we're going to hear in a moment first from Jan Beveridge, who's a member of Save Our Water, and she's going to give a review of the last 6 years since Save Our Water was founded. She'll be followed by Donna McCaw, who's going to talk about the issue right now. After that, Mayor Kelly Linton will provide an update from Centre Wellington Township. And then Brent Coleman, who's also a member of Save Our Water, will talk about keeping the issue front and center and what actions people can take now. Now, as Megan mentioned a moment ago, throughout the meeting, you can comment in the chat box. Everybody can see those comments. It's a good thing to do and helpful and keeps us all engaged. And you can pose questions. Now, we're going to answer questions at the end after all the presentations. But rather than hold on to your thought and feel like you have to hold it to the end of the meeting, please enter your questions as you have them, as they occur to you in the chat box. And depending on the nature of your question, some of the panelists may respond to your question through the chat box as the meeting progresses. Myself and Megan will be keeping a careful list of the questions, and we'll be sure to come back and address all of them before the end of the meeting. As I always like to say when I'm in a meeting like this, are we at the same meeting? I think so. If so, please thumbs up or wave or say so yes through the chat box. And I'm very pleased now to introduce Jan Beveridge from Save Our Water. Jan.
Thank you, Mike. And I want to say a big thank you to Megan and Danny for taking care of the technical support for in the background for this meeting. This has been an enormous help to us. Danny, could I have slide 1? Danny, I need slide 1. Okay, there we are. Okay. In April of 2015, the residents learned that Nestle had a conditional offer to purchase the Middlebrook well property and that they wanted to take up to 1.6 million liters a day for water bottling. So a ragtag group of residents that eventually turned into the Save Our Water group started meeting. And we have actually been meeting almost every Wednesday night since then. We never dreamt that this was going to continue for 6 long years, but still there's no water permit at Middlebrook. As we've been learning a lot about the environmental effects of the industry and plastic and so much more, we've become only more convinced that it's critical that this groundwater be protected. Okay, next slide. I wanted to take a few minutes to highlight what I think are 4 key takeaway points from these 6 years. First is the scientific knowledge has changed. We depend 100% on groundwater that moves through rock deep in the ground. If a decision had been made about Middlebrook back in 2015, this decision would have been based on the assumption that the rock underneath Centre Wellington was just the same as it is under Guelph, because that was the science then. But now we know that it's very different here. The province has spent $1 million and 4 years to study this. The study team produced a 3D computer model simulation of all of these various bedrock layers underneath us that represent eons of rock formation. I really wanted to show everyone this. To me, this computer simulation is amazing because while we can see water that's on the surface, like lakes and rivers, when it comes to the rock and water that's underneath us, of course, this is all completely invisible. So I think that these scientists are really quite remarkable who can map out in 3D all of these invisible layers of rock. The Tier 3 study asked the question, how much rain falls here and where does it end up? When rain hits the ground, some of it is taken up by roots and trees, some evaporates, some runs off into rivers. Only a small amount of it gets down into the rock and becomes groundwater. This computer model follows water as it moves down through time and space to find out how much water gets to a municipal well and how long it takes to get there. For some water, it's less than 2 years. For other water, this is rain that fell up to 50 to 500 years ago. So now we have a much better idea of this water that we're trying to protect. My second takeaway point is about uncertainty. With this new knowledge, one thing that we now know for sure is that there's uncertainty about the future water supply. We have a fast-growing population. The next slide, please. Okay, thanks. Water flows through the bedrock, best for us, west of Elora. Now, this is the red area that's on the left-hand side of the map. The Tier 3 predicts that this is going to be the sweet area for our future municipal water for both Fergus and Elora. We need 4 new wells over the next 2 decades. The green circles are potential source areas for water, but until we've got some test wells drilled into the ground out there over the next 2 decades, our future sources remain uncertain. So you can see where the Middlebrook well is. A water coming along and extracting anything from this red area poses a threat to our municipal water supply. It means that the township would have to be leapfrogging over them to get to our own water source, which would have to be farther away and at a greater cost. So this uncertainty about future water is why the Tier 3 study assessed Centre Wellington at a significant risk level. This is the highest risk level for future water sources. They could predict that water is available for our wells up to around 2031. And after that, we just don't know. And that's only 10 years. And that uncertainty is the reason for the significant risk designation. The next step was the Tier 3 established what it called a vulnerable area for groundwater for Centre Wellington, which is all of the colored area on this map. So this encompasses Fergus and Elora and the whole western part of Centre Wellington. It's designated as a vulnerable area because of that uncertainty. and because any reduction in water in this area would have some impact on where our wells will get their water in the future. It means that this whole area requires extra special attention. A third takeaway point is that the Middlebrook well became the province's line in the sand when it came to water bottlers. By 2016, the province understood the municipality's dilemma. On the one hand, we have to deal with the province's accelerated population growth targets for this particular area. And on the other hand, Centre Wellington would be competing with a water bottler for its water supply. So this situation was enough to give the province pause. It gave the ministry the momentum it needed to call a halt, impose the moratorium, and review all their rules about water permits, and with a special focus on water bottlers. The ministry's policy review is what spread the initial 2-year moratorium out to over 4 years. They weren't going to lift that moratorium until the review was finished and all the new rules about water permits were ready to come into effect. This happened on April 1st. And here's what the public should take note of from these new changes as of April 1st. First is that areas like ours, where water sustainability is a concern, need different management from other parts of the province. This itself is really groundbreaking from what we had before. A second point is that now certain uses of water take precedence, so that ecosystems, drinking water, and farms come first before industrial and commercial uses. And third, the ministry recognized that municipalities need to have a deciding voice on new permits for water bottlers. The municipal ability to say no to water bottlers is an amazing change. This transforms the conversation. However, there is a however here. There's a threshold to this veto power. A smaller amount of water is still exempt from it, and it's that smaller amount of water that we're still concerned about. And the final key takeaway for me is that this community has made a difference. The ministry paid attention to our councillors, mayor, and staff, and I want you to know that they've been working behind the scenes, meeting with the ministry, speaking up in the review process, and drafting their own policies and resolutions, and we sure thank them for that. SaveOurWater has persisted in getting facts to politicians and the ministry, even to the point, I'm sure, of probably becoming quite annoying to them, but I think that they've been paying attention. Some concerned residents early on engaged a hydrogeologist and civil engineer, Gary Hunter. When Gary first saw the population growth targets, he immediately identified the Middlebrook proposal as a threat to our municipal water infrastructure. Gary's analysis of the situation was game-changing. Since his initial report in early 2016, he's undertaken an extensive study of our water system, and his involvement still continues right now. So huge thanks go to Gary Hunter. Some local individuals deserve special kudos to Sophie Hogan's substantial donation of her time and talent on her photography project with over 300 I Am a Water Protector posters went a long way to raising awareness and community involvement, as well as some needed financial help. And thanks also go to the Benham family, Gerald and Sue. They took upon themselves to host an outdoor benefit music concert for us. So to sum up, 6 years ago, the idea that a small community like ours could ever make a difference in stopping this permit seemed ridiculous. But gradually the idea took hold and became mainstream that we should try and protect this water. I feel fortunate that I live in a community that cares so much about this and to have witnessed how far we've come. It may seem like this is turtle speed at any one point, but the issue has moved a huge long way. The municipal veto is in place, which is a remarkably good outcome. And now I'm going to just hand this over to Donna McCaw. Donna has been a strong voice of Save Our Water from the beginning, and she's going to explain right where we are at this point.
Thanks, Jan, and thanks for all your really hard work on this. We would not be in this better position now if it were not for the huge community involvement to say no to commercial water bottling in Centre Wellington, a real team effort. So from fundraisers to the Elora Farmers Market, to colorful parades, signs on lawns, marches, the Elora Festival, Riverfest, and all who've made this message visible and impactful, thank you. Thank you for all you've done to protect water. We also want to thank our volunteers, our letter writers, our local businesses, the water champions and the water protectors, advisors, donors, supporters who've helped so much over the last 6 years. And thanks to the faith communities for support, the Chamber of Commerce for 2 awards, the whole community for efforts to keep water here and not trucked away to be put in plastic. So yay us. And we've carried on over a year in this pandemic. There's one of our parades. Aren't we beautiful? Such a fabulous group. So where are we now? Last October, Jeff Urich, the Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, visited our community, invited Jan and I to the council chambers to join Mayor Linton, Andy Goldie, and Ted Arnott. The minister reassured us at that the new regulations would be in place by April 1st to protect the water. So now what do we have from those regulations? Well, in December, we got the municipal veto, and that's now in place for amounts of over 379,000 liters per day. That's roughly 25% of what Nestle wanted originally, which was the 1.6 million liters of water per day. So any bottling business that wants a permit to pump over that amount must get approval from the municipal council. And we know that our council has passed unanimously resolutions to protect local water. This municipal veto is great news and a profound change. However, a company could still seek and be granted a permit without council permission for the lesser amount. And then we're back to fighting a permit again. So any bottler would need to do a pump test. They can now do that without a permit or public consultation or even notification. Would a company do such a test in an area deemed at significant risk for municipal drinking water? We'll see. Stay tuned. Provincial regulations also say if there's a conflict about that water, municipal drinking water takes higher priority than commercial water bottling. Yay, that one. And at the local level, the Middlebrook site is not zoned for water taking at either the township or the county level. On Centre Wellington's M1 table of rural industrial, a water taking company is not on the approved list. For county zoning, it's dry use industrial, so no large volume of water use is included. Unfortunately, the zoning issue can be appealed to the LPAT, whose decisions would be binding. And this is the risk with the zoning option as protection. And then, continuing from the Tier 3 study, $1 million spent here to find out where our water comes from, and that's where the significant risk designation came from. The new source protection policies under the Clean Water Act are now in place to mitigate that risk. So that's another layer of protection that's now in place. But then there's that other wrinkle that Mike pointed out, the sale of Nestle Waters to 2 American investment companies, One Rock Capital Partners, a private equity company, and Metropolis and Company that owns a range of food and beverage brands. And that was completed March 31st, one day before the moratorium was raised. So they have rebranded, as Mike said, to Blue Triton and are retaining the Nestle employees and holdings so far. They use the same healthy hydration wording and corporate language as Nestle has in the past. So it looks like instead of Nestle's Pure Life, we may be saying Blue Triton Pure Life across Canada. But the issues remain the same with this business, however. This industry has a huge environmental footprint, uses vast amounts of water in an environmentally unsound way, causes high carbon emissions, and creates tons of plastic pollution, I listened to a show on Quirks and Quarks on CBC radio today, and we are now breathing in plastic. Not only are we drinking it, not only are we eating it, we're now breathing it in. So every liter of water taken away to bottle does not continue its natural journey in the watershed. And the Grand River watershed is a vulnerable one. So they've got 2 wells in BC, 2 locations in Wellington County that supply bottled water to the whole of Canada. It's trucked to Newfoundland and Labrador, to Victoria, BC, to Windsor, Ontario, and every other Canadian location where taxpayers pay a great deal to ensure safe, clean tap water. It continues to make no sense to permit any competition in a water-stressed area between a municipality mandated to grow and a commercial water bottler. The province can't have it both ways. They can't target this area for rapid, extensive growth and then permit large-scale water extraction. So to summarize, here's what we know. 1, provincial policies and relations have changed because of our situation here in Centre Wellington. We now have a municipal veto for over 379,000 liters per day, and we have new source water protection policies. 2, we know we need a number of new municipal wells in Centre Wellington. 3, we know from the water supply master plan that the best area to get that water is northwest of Elora near Middlebrook. 4, we know that wells in this area are to be 2 kilometers apart to avoid interfering with each other. 5, we know this community will work hard to protect this precious water, as we understand that water is a shared responsibility and a public trust. 6, we know we've made a positive difference for provincial regulations for water taken in Ontario, but Centre Wellington water is not safe yet. Middlebrook is still owned by 2 American companies. 7, we know that no company has made a penny taking groundwater at Middlebrook for the last 6 years. And now Blue Triton needs to get that message that it will never make a penny here. So once again, thank you. Stay tuned. We're not done yet. And now I'd like to introduce Mayor Kelly Linton to let us know what the township has been doing to ensure we have good municipal water. Kelly.
Well, thank you so much, Donna and Jan, for inviting me to be with you this evening. This is a pleasure to, it feels like we don't do this very often anymore, so it's a pleasure for me to have an opportunity to talk to you tonight. I just have to warn you right off the top, I got my AstraZeneca shot yesterday, so I'm feeling a bit off, so if I fall over, you'll know why. So the title of my presentation tonight is Protecting Our Water. And while the township has been effectively managing groundwater for decades, I want to focus this presentation on what we've done since 2015. So to the next page. So as far as the flow of my talk tonight, I'll provide a little bit of context, talk a little bit about how the township manages our water supply, our system, our people, our process, focus a little on the actions that we've taken, summarize our results to date, and then we'll end with a slide that talks a little bit about the future. Okay. A little bit of context first. For those of you who know me, I'm a really strong advocate of strategic planning. I think it's really important that we establish our priorities in order to what we do as a local government and how we spend your tax dollars. So for the last 2 terms of council since I've been mayor, we've embedded water protection efforts right into our strategic plan. So in the 2015 to 2018 strategic plan, we wrote right in there that the township will lobby the Ontario government about our concerns about commercial water taking. And we also wrote that the township will provide new opportunities to make municipal water more accessible at events and public spaces. And so then in this most recent term of council, the 2019 to the 2022 strategic plan, we just point blank said that we're going to protect the township's long-term water supply. So bottom line for us since 2015, protecting our water has been identified as the top strategic priority for the township. Next slide. So water is our priority number one. When it comes to managing our water, the township knows what we're doing. We have a state-of-the-art system. We have a rigorous process. So first, let's talk about the system that we have. We have 5 production wells in Fergus, 3 in Elora. We've invested millions of dollars in upgrading our water system. We have included elevated water storage for peak demands and emergencies. We have interconnected the Elora and Fergus water systems, and we currently have a state-of-the-art monitoring and operations system called SCADA. Next page. We have professional, qualified people. I sometimes get the impression that people think that because we're a small town and not a big shiny city, that we don't have serious qualification when it comes to running an advanced water program. But there's nothing further from the truth. We have a highly skilled team of 20 qualified professionals. Not all of them are township staff, but they all play a role in managing our water system. So together, those 20 people have over 450 combined years of experience in managing sophisticated water systems. We have engineers, we have technologists, we have inspectors, we have scientists, environmentalists, hydrologists, skilled water operators. They're all part of the Township of Centre Wellington team. So bottom line, we have all the professional qualified people that we need to protect Centre Wellington's water system both now and in the future. Next slide, please. So getting into our process a little bit, since Walkerton in 2000, Ontario has enacted some of the most stringent water legislation and regulations across North America. And the township has constantly complied with all applicable legislation and regulations under 2 pieces of legislation. First, the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act. And through our SCADA system, our well locations are monitored every second of every day. So 2,000 water samples are taken every single day to verify that our water is safe. We also undergo third-party audits of our drinking water quality on a regular basis. Okay, next slide. We'll get into a little bit about the action. So since 2015, we've taken some strategic actions to protect our water. So we've never been satisfied, and I've never been satisfied as the mayor of this town to just say the right things. That's really easy to do, but taking action is what matters to me. So our approach since day one has been to make sure that we're the experts at our own water resources. We needed to make sure that we had our house in order first. Second is to avoid being anti-Nestle, and we took this decision right away. This was absolutely necessary if we were to have credibility with the Ontario government, ministers, and staff. Thirdly, we wanted to make sure that we work collaboratively with you guys, with Save Our Water and our community leaders to really engage our residents. Save Our Water has done such amazing work in our community, and it's been our pleasure to partner with you guys throughout this whole process, and make sure that we have ongoing respectful interaction with the Ontario government. That's the reason why we've been invited 6 times to speak to the Ontario government. It's because of our approach to talking to them and making sure that we don't just go there and complain. We have solutions in our back pocket, and they know that our community is behind us. We've also avoided sensationalism, and to continue to provide consistent and action-oriented leadership. For example, when word got out that the township had submitted a competitive bid back in 2016 to purchase the Middlebrook well, this got a lot of mainstream media attention. So I was constantly baited by the media to say something provocative or say something confrontational, but I constantly stuck to a very boring explanation that this action that we were taking and the actions that we always take are to simply make sure that we're protecting the long-term supply of our water in Centre Wellington, period. Next slide, please. So talking a little bit about what we've done, and Jan and Donna mentioned some of these studies, major water studies. The township has spent thousands of dollars on resources and make sure that we knew what we needed when it came to water going forward. We've made major investment in well optimization and water exploration efforts as per the recommendation of these water studies. We've had 6 ministers' meetings, all with 3 different ministers. The most recent one is the one that Jan talked about when Minister Urick came to Elora. And that doesn't happen too often, where the minister comes to your hometown to talk to you about the veto that the municipalities were going to have. So that was good news. We've had 4 important council resolutions, including one that states that we are not a willing host for commercial water bottling in Centre Wellington. We've increased access to municipal water to reduce single water bottles. So our water buggy program, we bought a water buggy, and we have public drinking fountains in town. Those are little things, but they're important things to make sure that we're making it clear that we want to promote our municipal water in Centre Wellington, and ongoing communication to the community. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about our results. So Jan mentioned this already. After 6 years to have no commercial water bottling coming out of Centre Wellington, nobody would have predicted that, I don't think, 6 years ago. And that's good teamwork with Save Our Water and the Township and our community leaders, many who are on the call tonight. And I know how much work that you've done on this file. We've quantified our current and our future water needs. Again, that's absolutely critical that we have our house in order. New investments to ramp up our water supply. We've maintained very productive working relationships with the Ontario government leaders, and that was clear when Minister Urick came to Elora to talk to us and to give us their commitment that they were going to put municipal water needs before all others. And we've had a united council. There's not too many things that council has been united on, and this is one of them. Last term of council, we were unanimous in all the actions we took regarding protecting our water, and this council as well. We've been unanimous in everything that we've done to support the community and protecting our water here in Centre Wellington. So looking ahead, next slide, looking ahead. Nothing really changes in our approach. We're always going to put long-term water needs of our community first. The players might change, but we're going to make sure that we're looking after Centre Wellington's water. We're going to drill and we're going to test the water quality and quantity of 2 replacement wells that we're going to be putting into commission, F2 and F5. We're going to rehabilitate well F1. This was mentioned already, exploration for new wells in Centre Wellington. So that's going to happen over the next couple of years. Continue to advocate with the provincial government. And this was mentioned already, especially related to lowering the 379 liters per day threshold. We'd like to be a veto against any water taking for projects or water taking that is below that as well. So we're going to continue to put pressure on the government on that one. We'll continue to monitor Middlebrook well situation with new owners. You know from the actions that we've taken in the past, if there's an opportunity to do something with that well, we haven't shied away from doing that in the past. So we'll be watching carefully what goes on with the Middlebrook well. Again, continuing to work with Save Our Water to engage and inform our community. I've been really pleased with the level of the working relationship that we've had with Save Our Water. We've made a really good team over the last 6 years, and I'd like that to continue. And in summary, we're going to do whatever we can as a local government to protect our water, and that will continue to be a top priority for the Township of Centre Wellington. Thank you very much for having me today.
Okay, so before I get started, I'd like to thank Mayor Kelly Linton for his time tonight and his efforts to date. It would be great if you could stick around, Kelly, to answer some potential questions after my talk is finished. And thanks to all of you, the attendees, for joining us today on Earth Day. So my name is Brent Coleman, and I've been a part of Save Our Water for about 3 years now. So given that Jan and Donna have done such a great job describing, just how far we've come over the last 6 years and where we are right now, I'm going to speak briefly on, what we have to do now and how you can help. So although provincial legislation has passed that allows municipalities like Centre Wellington to veto permits to take water for amounts greater than 379,000 liters per day, there's still a number of reasons to oppose any permit to take water for bottling from Middlebrook. So firstly, water taking from Middlebrook will contribute to the growing problem of plastic pollution. So the UN reports that 1 million plastic drinking bottles are purchased every minute worldwide. And scientists have suggested that plastic could serve as a geological indicator of the Anthropocene era, an era marked by significant human impact on the Earth's geology and ecosystems. Plastic pollution causes irreparable harm to our environment, and due to its slow degradation process, these harms can last for decades and beyond. Further, studies to investigate links between plastic pollution and human health are ongoing and numerous. We must continue working to limit plastic waste locally and abroad, and we need to act now. Eliminating waste at the source is our most effective approach to managing pollution. Next, there is no legitimacy to the for-profit water bottling industry. Safe and portable drinking water is essential for communities without access to clean drinking water, and in emergency situations where access to safe water is compromised. However, it is important to differentiate between consuming bottled water when it is necessary versus as a convenience item. Just a few weeks ago, we saw Nestle Waters North America, which includes the Middlebrook property, sold for a staggering $4.3 billion US. How have we reached the point where the commodification of a human right, access to clean and safe drinking water, is not only accepted, but even promoted? It doesn't sit right with us, and we encourage you to stand with us if it doesn't sit right with you either. And finally, there is a looming need for new municipal wells. It would be irresponsible to extract large amounts of groundwater from a community, especially when that community is in need of new municipal wells to maintain adequate supply of water for its own residents. It makes even less sense to grant any permit at Middlebrook when you consider that Centre Wellington's population is mandated to double by 2041, and understanding that the best quality and most abundant water sources lies west of Elora near the Middlebrook Wells location. It would be reckless in a water-sensitive area to permit competition between a township mandated to grow and an exploitive commercial water taker. So the good news, we can act on this. We've invested 6 years and we want to see this challenge of protecting this local well to its conclusion. So there are a number of ways that you can help. Firstly, make sure this issue stays front and center at all levels of government. Our elected officials need to be reminded of our opposition to bottled water, and often. In no small part due to our consistent letter writing campaigns and through support from our own municipal government, we have achieved a lot already. So let's keep it up. We need to be vigilant. Given the importance of the municipal veto, we need to help ensure that any candidate who intends to run for municipal office will stand strong for water. We need to keep it visible for the public. Put up your ribbons, put out your signs. Commercial water bottlers need to know our community is not a willing host. Both lawn signs and ribbons can be ordered via our website at SaveOurWater.CA. All lawn signs that were collected in the fall will be returned to lawns when the stay-at-home order is lifted. Next, share our social media posts and engage in conversations with your family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues. Sophie Hogan's I'm a Water Protector campaign and our more recent Stand With Us campaign are clear examples of how we can attract significant attention and spark important conversations about our community's water. This is critical to grassroots movements like ours. You can stay in touch with us. We frequently post updates on our website, our social media channels, and via newsletters. If you're interested in receiving our newsletter, visit SaveOurWater.CA/keep-in-touch. And finally, watch, wait, and be ready. Developments related to Middlebrook can happen fast. We need to be ready to act. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. And thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you, Mayor Linton. Thank you, Donna McCaw and Jan Beveridge. There are some questions, and I'm going to take them kind of in the order that they've been posted, and I'm going to direct them to people who I think are best able to answer them. But I'm going to ask the speakers to help me out if they think that they want to add something to it. So the first question is for the mayor. It's from Penny Lipset. And the question is, has there been any contact with the hedge fund that has purchased Nestle's?
That's a good question. No, there hasn't been any contact yet. Council has had a resolution that it wasn't going to enter into any negotiations with the previous owner. And until council changes that direction, we haven't had any direction from council to enter any negotiations with the new owner of Middlebrook Well. Obviously, that's happened really quickly, and we'll be monitoring the situation. And we're always open for discussions with them, but nothing's happened to date.
Thank you. This next question is for you as well, Mayor. It's from Karen Rathwell. Since Centre Wellington publicly affirmed that it was not a willing host in 2018, why isn't the township more publicly vocal in its opposition to this proposal for water taking Middlebrook? And could the township be doing more to keep local residents apprised on this? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty vocal in our opposition to commercial water taking in Centre Wellington, and we've communicated that out as much as we can. You know, with resolutions, minister meetings, and the communication that we've sent out, and in our communication with Save Our Water to residents. I'm not sure how much more we can do on it. As I said before, we're not going to take a stand against a particular company. That's not the role of local government. The mandate of Save Our Water is different, and I think most people appreciate that. The township has to play a little bit of a different role and make sure that we don't single out a specific business, and make sure that we're focusing our attention on protecting the long-term quality and quantity of our water.
Mayor, this question comes from Cara Beauchamp, and it's got a quantity and quality aspect to it, but on a different topic. Cara says gravel pits take up to 10 times more water than water bottling. This is more of a stress in the south of the county than the water bottling. How is this waste of water being addressed?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It's just not a question for municipal government. As most people know, municipalities don't have any role to play when it comes to water taking, except for what the province has just done and allowed us to have a veto. That's the first time that there's been any indication that the municipalities will actually have any say, and that's why we applauded that decision. But as far as municipal water taking when it comes to gravel pits or any other operations, that's completely under the jurisdiction of the Ontario government, and the municipality has no say in that. We can advocate, and we do advocate, and we have advocated, but that's not a decision that is within the sphere of the municipal government.
This isn't a question, Kelly, but I'm just wondering, do you want to, is there anything you want to say in this moment to expand on your advocacy around gravel pits?
Yeah, sure. So the advocacy on gravel pits, that's through the Wellington County. So I'm putting on my Wellington County warden hat when I talk right now. For years, we've thought the gravel pits haven't been paying their fair share of assessment taxes. And so we're pushing really hard to make sure that gravel pits actually pay their fair share of taxes. And that means that gravel pits are assessed at a higher level. So we're working really hard to make sure that gravel pit, that small businesses and residents are not subsidizing large gravel pit operations. So that's a completely different file, but that's something that we're very involved in as a Wellington County upper tier of local government, and something that's it's happening right now. We're getting some traction and making some really good inroads, and making sure that there's fair taxation for gravel pits.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to give you a rest now, and I'm going to ask Jen and Don a couple of questions. Jen, I'm going to start off with this one for you. Brent has already had some back and forth in the chat box with the person who asked this question, Brent Graham, but I think there's a part for you still to comment on. So the question goes like this. First of all, Brent congratulates you. Congratulations for your success to date. And I think we could all pause and just clap along and amplify those congratulations. But Brent's question is this: if you had not received the significant risk designation, what might have happened? Is water more vulnerable under that scenario where you don't receive that designation? What do you say, Jan?
Certainly we thought it was a good thing that we did get that designation, because it focuses attention. It shows that we need to have special attention paid to the water for this community. If we'd only been at moderate risk, I think we would have been very concerned that the issue isn't just about volume of water. We may have paid more attention then in talking about how our municipal infrastructure has to expand and where it can expand to, and how that particular water taking would interfere with the way our township can efficiently and effectively develop its water system. Because developing a water system doesn't just depend on how much water there is. It depends on where you can go. You have to put water mains out. You have to plan this decades ahead, where you're gonna be heading to get your water and how you're gonna be linking up your wells back to town. So I think we would have focused more on not the quantity, but on the infrastructure expansion and how you can efficiently and effectively and cost effectively manage your water in the town.
Thanks, Jan. This next question from Victor Fletcher is about royalties being paid on water. And I'm going to let you decide, Jan, whether you want to answer this or you want Donna to answer it. But the question is, there was a statement actually, royalties should be paid for our water like the oil industry. Why are we supporting foreign corporations that get our water for pennies, but sell it to us for a price more expensive than gasoline? Now, the whole issue of royalties on water, I know, is a controversial one. Jan, do you or Donna want to speak to this? What's your position on royalties on water?
I could start on it and see if Donna has something to add. So a water bottler pays $500 for every 1,000,000 liters of water that is taken. That isn't a royalty. That is actually a levy. That's more of an administrative cost. So that, and it doesn't even cover the cost of administering the whole permit to take water process. So that $500 is $503.79 is not a royalty. As soon as you get paying for water, then it makes that resource a commodity. And as soon as it becomes a commodity, then it has a special relationship with trade deals. And you're talking about a whole different thing. And we do not want water to become a commodity in that way. Donna, do you want to add something?
Yeah, water is being taken in both Ontario and in BC, and there are very, very low fees for doing that, basically pretty well free. And we do not, as Jan said, want it to be a commodity. However, in the States, they're now water is now trading as a commodity, which is a very, very dangerous precedent to be set. And we are not allowed to export bulk water at this point, but if you put it in little plastic bottles, you can export it, which is ridiculous. So some of our water is leaving the country in little plastic bottles, particularly from a couple of Chinese water bottlers in BC. So this is a very slippery slope we're on about notification and giving our water away for a very cheap administration cost. We have this myth of abundance of water, You know, Canada has so much water because of the Great Lakes and the so many lakes and so on, but much of it is not available or usable. So we have to take much better care of our water than we have.
Thank you, Donna and Jan. Mayor Linton, I'd like to call you back to the stage for a few more questions. I'm looking to watch for you on the screen.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, so the first one's I hope is a very easy question for you to answer. Gordon Harris wants to know, where are the drinking fountains in Fergus?
Yeah, we have plans to do a couple in Fergus. One by the library. COVID's kind of thrown a wrench in a bunch of our plans, over as I'm sure it has been in some of your plans as well. We have one going to be installed near the library in Fergus, and then we have a couple more that are going to be installed across Centre Wellington as well. We have some good plans, exciting plans to do that. And the cool thing is that we're having community organizations partner with us to fundraise for them, which is really, really nice. So we have one in downtown Elora that was helped fundraise by the Elora Public School. And so we have a nice plaque for them down there. So that's something that we're going to do more of for sure. Good question.
So Mayor, this question has a statement in it and links to another issue. So I'm just going to read it out to you and let you navigate your way to a clear answer. So the question is from Carol Williams. Surely part of all this process is to stop the sales of bottled water in Centre Wellington, but it's not going to happen when the municipality doesn't provide drinkable water in many of the apartment buildings in Fergus and Elora. Some are subsidized housing, and this is inexcusable. What do you say about the issue of the quality of drinking water in apartment buildings in Fergus and Elora?
Yeah, that's news to me. You know, our water is, as I mentioned in my presentation, is tested 2,000 times every day, and we have safe, quality drinking water. I know there's times where there's some elements of discoloration because we have very hard water in Centre Wellington, as many of you know, and that we have to treat it for that. So that's something that we're working on. One of the actions that I mentioned in my presentation, F7, we want to make sure there's some discoloration coming on our well in F7, and that's one of the wells that we want to clean up, so that's the water is better quality. There's nothing wrong with it as far as a safety perspective, but we want to make sure that we're continuing to improve the water quality that people get. But as far as I know, across Centre Wellington, our water is safe and clean.
Mayor, there's another question, and it's from Nancy Scott. And Nancy, I'm going to ask the question, but you may have to add a clarifying. You may have to help us out with another comment in the chat. Nancy's question says, is there a plan to inform all the residents in the new housing developments about this issue when they move in? What's this issue? Is the issue of water security? Maybe Nancy, I'm going to ask you if you could just make an addition in a chat box, and we'll come back to you about what this is. Kara asks a question, and I'm going to answer this one. How much do other water takers pay in Ontario? Oh, I see. I misunderstood that. No, I'm going to ask you, Mayor. How much do other water takers pay in Ontario compared to what water bottlers pay?
I don't really understand that question.
I think the issue is you know, and I've heard Nestle complain about this actually, that Nestle's paying $500 a million liters for taking water, but if you're an industry or you're a farmer and you have a permit to take water, you're not paying the same price that they are. Nestle has complained all along that they feel that they're being treated unfairly. Personally, I find it hard to feel that a multinational of that size can feel like they're being treated unfairly by paying less than a penny a liter for water. But leaving my editorial comment aside, I don't know, Jan or Donna, do you know if you have a permit to take water, what you pay for the water? You may have to research that and come back to you. there's a question here. There's lots, by the way, to all the Save Our Water leadership and to all the people in the community who have been involved. I hope you're reading all the positive congratulatory comments in the chat box from people that are showing you a lot of love. So many points, good points are being made here. Good work, Save Our Water team. And there's been a couple of people saying they were missing sound all of a sudden. So I'm hoping that's got cleared up. But speaking of royalties and levies, I'm going to start off. I'm going to just read this question out. This well, the Middlebrook well, is in the Haldeman Tract, a large territory up and down the Grand River. Have there been any discussions between Save Our Water and your political reps about the treaty and sovereignty issue, especially now at a critical time in Canada's reconciliation with First Nations? And as you may know, there's a new development moratorium for these lands, Elora, Fergus, the Middlebrook well, which only makes this issue more critical and current and hopefully strategic. And there's a link in the chat box to an article about that. So have there been any discussions among you, Mayor, with Six Nations? Is there anything you want to say about this recent announcement?
Sorry, is that to me or is that?
Well, we'll start with you and then I'll go to Jan.
Yeah, no, this is really, really recent. No discussions from us yet.
Jan and Donna?
I just read about that this afternoon. So this is really recent. Yes, we've been conscious all along that this Middlebrook well is on the Haldeman Tract, and we've had conversations with the Haudenosaunee groups, and they are very, very concerned that land and water in this tract be protected. So I'm sure that any development of this well for water bottling is going to involve First Nations. It just will. Something I don't know if people realize, this is something that I've, until you look at maps, you don't really realize how close the Middlebrook well is to the Grand River. Right when you're going down Middlebrook, the Grand River takes a turn right at the Middlebrook well, and it comes really, really close, right as Middlebrook actually turns also, and the river and the road become very close together there. So it's the closest point actually of the road and the river. And so the Middlebrook well is less than 100 meters from the Grand River. I think that the Six Nations and the Haudenosaunee have a real interest in this well. And something I just wanted to add to this point is that it isn't just the Haudenosaunee. A couple of years ago, the 133 chiefs of Ontario, that's unanimously they made a statement rejecting all of the permit to take water for water bottlers legislation. So all of the 133 chiefs of Ontario are very opposed to this. So it's beyond the Haudenosaunee and the Haldeman issue. Donna, did you want to add anything to that?
We've certainly had involvement from various groups that have let us know that they are opposed to water bottling here. We've had water ceremonies here. We've had a feast here. We've had a number of very supportive connections with Six Nations. But this development just came up this afternoon, and we really haven't had a chance to take a look at that at all.
And Donna, while I have you on the screen, because you brought up the question of water bottling in British Columbia, I'm sure, well, I won't prejudge the level of detail, but somebody's asking, how many liters are British Columbia, sorry, let me start over. How many liters are British Columbia companies bottling and exporting? Do you know the volume? The water
I don't know the volume, but take a look at Freshwater Alliance, and BC group is called Code Blue. And I was speaking to them not that long ago, but we didn't go into the specific details of volume and so on. And I'd also want to take a look at Bruce Gibbons and the work that he's done with the Merville Water Group. They organized all of the municipalities in the whole of BC, who then sent a resolution to the provincial government asking the provincial government to ban bottling water in BC. And so far, the provincial government has completely ignored that association of municipalities. So I don't know the nitty-gritty of the amounts, but I have spoken to the people there who are involved in opposing this.
And the nitty-gritty can be found out at the Code Blue website.
Code Blue or contact them.
Okay. I'm going to call you back to the stage, Mayor Linton, and we're getting to the end of the list, folks. We've only have a couple more questions. So if you've got something you want to ask, now's the time to do it. So Mayor Linton, a question that came into us by email from somebody. What is the economic benefit to the community of letting someone bottle water?
Well, I'm going to make it specific to Centre. It's a general question, but I'm going to make it specific to Centre Wellington because I believe that's probably what the question is asking. As far as Centre Wellington and Middlebrook well, and there's really no economic development for us at all. What people have to remember is that Centre Wellington didn't invite commercial water bottling to come to town. They came out of their own free will. There's really no economic benefit to that. At least the former plan, it was basically would have brought in maybe half a person's job. And then they just extract water. So that's not economic development. It's not my definition of economic development. So there's really nothing in it for Centre Wellington. And there's just potential negatives taking water in a growing community. And we want to make sure that we're looking after our water long term.
Thank you, Kelly. Can you give from Jim Wilton, can you give us an idea of the budget and timelines to get a new well to the west?
That's a pretty involved question, and I can't answer that right off the bat. I can take that question away and get Jim the information, but
okay.
I can't pull that out of my hat.
So Carol Williams makes a statement first. She says, congratulations to all the Save the Water people. And this conversation focuses on the towns. Pilkington is a very large area within Centre Wellington's almost purely agricultural. What protection is Centre Wellington going to offer to make sure that farmers, horse breeders, will not find that their water supplies are being affected due to intake from the towns?
So that's for me?
Yes, for you.
Well, again, I'm just going to remind people that water taking is a provincial responsibility. The town has done its job in making sure that we understand what our needs are, so we can let the province know very clearly what our future needs are and what our challenges are moving forward. As Donna mentioned before, the province has targeted our area as a place to grow. So if they're targeting us as a place to grow, we need the water capacity in order to meet that mandate of growth. So now that we have completed our water supply master plan, we know how much water we're going to need based on the growth rate and based on how much water we have right now. So what we can offer to the province is what our limitations are when it comes to water taking, and provide our comments to them on whether or not we should allow additional water takings to happen. But at the end of the day, the province makes the decision on water taking. So we can influence, and we can influence it much better now that we have our own house in order.
Thank you. Nancy Scott has added a little bit of more information here, and her earlier question was, what's your plan to inform people in the new developments, the planned new developments, about the water security in the area, as well as the municipality's stand on bottled water?
I've been pretty clear about, I'm going to take the second one first. I've been pretty clear that our mandate has been really clear, looking after the long-term water supply of Centre Wellington, period. And that's what we're focusing on, and all our efforts are surrounding that, and we spend a significant amount of tax dollars to make sure that we're looking after our water supply so that Centre Wellington residents will never have to worry about water here. as far as any developments that we have on the books, everything goes through a pretty substantial planning process and pretty substantial infrastructure review, so that we know that any new developments that we have online, our water supply can handle it. We're not going to go and allow a development to take place if there's not water security for that development. That's bad planning. I mentioned before in my presentation the qualifications that we have internally at the township to make sure that we're looking after our water long term. And that's why we have those qualified people on staff, is that when a development comes to our door, we go through a pretty rigorous testing process to make sure that we have the infrastructure, including the water infrastructure, to support that development. So residents of Centre Wellington don't have to be concerned that we're developing and we don't know what we're going to be able to supply those developments with drinking water long into the future.
Now, Mayor, this is a different kind of question, and it's something that might appeal to you, given the COVID restrictions we've been operating under. But Shane Phillips says that drinking water is still not available to all people in Canada, and the federal government still has not taken any real action regarding water issues on a national scale. So will Mayor Linton walk with Shane Phillips from Elora to Queen's Park for Save Our Water from June 23rd to 25th, 2021? Would you like to go for a walk with Shane Phillips, Mayor?
You know, you think that I'm going to make a big decision on that just at the spur of the moment?
Oh yeah, right now.
I know there is one councillor that we have on Centre Wellington would just say yes to that, and he just did his walk to Ottawa, and he probably got asked just like that, and he probably just said yes, and after his walk and his knees are shot, he might have thought he should have thought about it a little bit longer. That sounds great, Shane, that you're doing that. And I can tell you I'll be with you in spirit, but I'm not going to make any commitments right now. I have a few other things on the go. That's a pretty long walk.
Well, Shane, doesn't sound like a no yet, so I'd keep in touch with him about this, especially if it's a nice weekend. We're getting near the end here, Mayor. A couple questions. Does Nestle pay taxes to the county, and if so, how much? Says Carol Beauchamp.
They pay significant taxes to the county through their operation in Aberfoyle and in Erin. So they pay significant taxes to the county. I don't have that written on the back of my hand, so I can't tell you how much. It's not that hard to find, but I just don't have it right now.
Okay, and Mayor, I think this is the last question. It's from Rob McKay. Bottled water is harming the environment in many ways. Why does Centre Wellington sell bottled water in its recreation facilities?
Yeah, that's a question that we've asked from time to time, for sure. And you know, it's a good question. We'll be asking that again. There's water is healthier than pop. So I think the thinking behind us originally selling bottled water is that people, when they're doing activities and they maybe don't have a water bottle there or something, it was convenient for people. And so that's probably something that we'll be rethinking. We're not selling anything right now because of COVID, so we have a little bit of time to think that one through. But that is probably going to be on our agenda to see if that's something that we're going to continue with.
Thank you, Mayor Linton. That concludes our questions. I think Donna's waving at me though. Donna, you got something you want to say?
Yeah, there's some folks here in Centre Wellington who may very well be trying to work together to make this a blue community. And that might deal with some of the water bottles in municipal facilities.
Okay, so we're going to summarize now I just kind of want to read out a couple of comments here. Thank you, Save Our Water. It's a sad thing that so many of us have to fight so long and hard to protect so many types of ecosystems. We'll all have to continue to fight and teach our children and their children how to do the same. Mayor Linton and Council, thank you for having the strength of conviction to work on behalf of our collective futures rather than your immediate terms. And that's just one comment. There are lots of comments in the chat box like that. I encourage you to go have a look. water fountains all over would help. And here's a question from Paul Baines that actually I think follows on the comment that I just read out. Who has the power, the authority, the legitimacy to designate the Middlebrook well a sacred site and thus not available for commercial use? Jan, Donna, I'm just going to ask you if you have any comment on that. I think it's a provocative question.
It is.
I think it's worth,
It is a
it's worth thinking
provocative
about.
It is a provocative question, and I don't know about it becoming a sacred site, but I do just want to comment that besides the Chiefs of Ontario, all of the major faith groups, the organized churches, have also come out with a very strong water is a sacred trust document. So water is just different from anything else, and I think it has to be respected, and we have to look at the societal values and there's the plastic and the carbon footprint of this industry and how this relates to human well-being, and that this industry is not sustainable for our planet. And so I think that it is a much bigger issue. And so I don't know about making the Middlebrook a sacred place, but I think that we focus this whole question on the Middlebrook well. And it's a much bigger question than maybe we've been discussing tonight. It's a much bigger question for all of humanity. And I just maybe want to say something. A couple of years ago, we had a meeting at the Legion, and somebody asked, Dana Rogers was talking about, is this Middlebrook well issue a NIMBY issue? And maybe tonight we've kind of been thinking, well, we've been doing a lot of talking about our local water system. And Dana said, of course, this actually, the Middlebrook well is a NIMBY issue. It is a not in our backyard issue. But then she went further and she said, but look at our backyard. And then she brought up an image of the Carl Sagan's image of the small blue dot that was taken from the space shuttle and looking at planet Earth. And she said, this is our backyard. So we are fighting here for Middlebrook, but we are fighting here for water for the whole planet. So Middlebrook is symbolic of something much bigger, for sure.
You know, Jan, just before we go back, just before we close, I'd like to expand, if you'll let me, on your comments in two ways. I think what you're saying is my backyard is your backyard, our backyard is everybody's backyard. This is especially true when it comes to water. And as you rightly point out, all of the Christian denominations have spoken out in favor of protecting water, and it's part of their creed, but it's also part of the creed. It's central to non-Christian faith traditions as well, and to Indigenous faith tradition, Indigenous spirituality. Water, in fact, is life. Water is a mother. Water is a relative. So that's it. Water is sacred. How and if and how a site could be declared sacred is a provocative thought worth thinking about. But all faith traditions see water as sacred. And I'm reminded, and Jan, you may remember this yourself, that when we had Franklin Frederick visit us from Switzerland, he's originally from Brazil, and he was talking about an experience he had where he talked with somebody from Japan who explained to him that the Japanese characters, the two characters that come together to indicate selling water, means blasphemy in the Japanese language. It translates as blasphemy. That's how powerful it is, that water is sacred. And as all of us who are on this call, though I would think almost all of us who are on this call would agree that this is why water should not be sold. Water should not be a commodity. Bottling water is part of the trend in that direction. And it's an important trend to resist. And in fact, and this is, I'm going to just a brief editorial comment from the perspective of the Water Watchers. While we're having to contend with this still, and while we're having to contend with the new owners of Nestle, we should all take heart from the fact that Nestle has felt they had to leave North America because of the public pressure against them for their history of taking water, profiteering from water, and really producing billions and billions of bottles of plastic. So this is not, it's not a neutral thing. It's happening because people respect and understand the sacred nature of water. I think, Megan, there's a slide we're going to put back up. We're going to remind people of how you can take action. We're concluding, folks, that you can make more comments in the chat box if you like, because we'll be saving the chat box, and we'll share those comments with Save Our Water leadership. And if there are additional questions there, for example, they'll be able to get back to you. It's not over till it's over. Make sure Save Our Water wants us to make sure the issue stays front and center. Keep the issue visible for the public with signs and ribbons. Share your posts about the issue on social media. Go to the Save Our Water website and sign up for the newsletter if you're not already signed up. And watch, wait, and be ready. We're going to leave the chat box open for a while. You can make closing comments. We're not going to end the meeting immediately. But we are going to say goodnight to you now. And it's been a pleasure being with you all. Thank you, Save Our Water, for inviting us to support you in this meeting tonight. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you to everybody in the community for your leadership on this, people in the community, people in Save Our Water, Mayor and Council. Hope you've enjoyed the evening, and we'll see you all again soon.